Ben Affleck and Matt Damon, everyone's favorite celebrity couple who aren't really a couple but also might actually be a couple, since as we all know, it could mean nothing. The two of them are back to deliver us one of the first of, for sure, many of Netflix films of the year in The Rip. The Rip is an action thriller movie directed by Joe Carnahan, which stars Ben Affleck, Matt Damon, Steven Yeun, and Teyana Taylor. The plot of the movie follows a moment when trust frays when a team of Miami cops discovers millions in cash inside a rundown stash house, calling everyone and everything into question. I haven't seen too many films by Carnahan apart from his version of The A-Team, which came out when I was a child, so I can barely remember it, but from when I was little, what I do remember of it wasn't anything too good. In fact, from looking at the guy's other film, this newest one might be his peak, so let's take a closer look and find out if that's the case. I'll start with the performances, which I'll lead with Matt Damon. Damon is known for roles in movies like The Martian and Good Will Hunting. I think it's safe to say that Matt Damon is the main character in this movie. I think they try to market this as having Ben Affleck also be in the leading role, as the two of them are battling for leading man credit, but I do think Matt Damon gets more screen time here. He does a good and believable job with the material he's given here. He's good at being a hard ass when the time comes to it. There are times when he brings a small level of humor to the role too, as he gets the occasional one-liners in here and there. There is this consistency with his character where you don't know if he's meant to be being fully truthful or not, and Damon does a good job at making this aspect of his character realistic. Ben Affleck, like I said, is in this movie too. Affleck is known for having roles in films like Argo and Gone Girl. Affleck, like usual, is meant to be the more stoic one of the two. He does most of the same things that Matt Damon does, where he is just as much of a hard ass as Damon's character. He is not too interesting throughout the runtime, however. The guy doesn't even have too big of an arc by the end of the movie either. A lot of people are happy to see that the two are working together again, as if they hadn't worked together in over a decade, even though they were in Air together, which was only in 2023. So I don't really understand the hype here. Steven Yeun plays a detective in this movie. He's known for having roles in movies like Mickey 17 most recently, and Nope, and is known in roles for TV shows like Invincible and The Walking Dead. For most of the runtime, I did like him here, as he brought a bit of levity to the group of characters that are mainly compiled of stoic people. He always does a good job of bringing a sort of light to any role he is in for most of the time, while he's also good at managing to have something else bubbling under the surface. It was interesting to watch. Teyana Taylor is another member of the main group in this movie. She's known for roles in movies like most recently being in One Battle After Another and Intergalactic. I liked her role in this. She oozed the same sort of confidence in which she showed in One Battle After Another. It's obviously how she just is naturally, so of course she does this really well. Sasha Calle is in this movie too. She's known for having roles in movies like The Flash and On Swift Horses. Admittedly, I haven't really seen anything Calle has been in besides The Flash, and I don't think much of her in that, which I think I can say isn't solely due to her talent alone, and more so due to the abysmal direction on The Flash, which is truly a terrible film. Here she does a good job at keeping you on your toes by not fully knowing where she stands, whether she is completely innocent as a bystander or if she knows more than she lets on. She's able to convey this very well, mostly through her eyes and certain mannerisms too, which made for an engaging enough performance. I have very little to say about the plot of this thing, however, as it didn't really grab me all too much. I don't think it does anything too interesting in a mostly one location movie, despite it not specifically being in one room alone. I think the movie thinks it's more interesting than it really is by filling the third act with a bunch of twists and turns that almost become a little cartoonish, and since it's a Netflix movie, they constantly have to show earlier scenes with new enlightenment context after the twist is revealed to keep the viewers that are on their phones up to speed with what's happening. With this assistance in mind, it more so reveals the movie to be more predictable than anything. Before any of this though, like I said, it's pretty uninteresting. It's just a bunch of waiting around mostly, and to help the viewer out in their boredom, there are occasions where the characters are literally telling the audience how many minutes before something interesting is gonna happen, which I always feel like is such a cop-out and stuff like this, and there's definitely better ways to have this constant countdown doomsday clock scenario, if you will. Half the movie is just Ben Affleck and Matt Damon shouting and swearing at each other. That's another thing too, that the dialogue isn't really all that great. People swear in this like it's a 12-year-old first learning what swear words are. Obviously, I'm not some prude, I'm not not one of these people that think all movies should be pure, but Jesus, it just felt very juvenile. And I think they try to excuse this on the basis that the main group of characters are meant to be somewhat dirty cops, but I feel like that's never explored fully to an interesting extent here. Moving on, I want to talk about cinematography in this movie, which was done by Juan Miguel Asperos. I've most likely butchered that name, so in advance I apologize. He has done cinematographies for a movie like Boss Level and Cop Shop, 2 movies done by the same director of this movie. The cinematography in this movie isn't all too interesting. There aren't really many stylish artistic techniques here, which doesn't help to keep anyone that would watch this thing engaged all too much. I'll admit, I think some of the lighting choices were pretty cool from time to time. There are nice uses of oranges and blues and some greens every now and then, but other than that, there isn't too much to write home about. A massive thing that stuck out to me was literally the last 5 minutes of the movie. I won't give too much details as I don't really intend for this to be a spoiler review, and also because as I'm writing this, I'm already struggling to remember specifics. During the overly schmaltzy happy ending, there's a scene when Ben Affleck is talking to his character's brother in the movie, and whenever it cuts to the brother, the shallow focus is done so incredibly shallow, as in you can't see a single thing in the background. Now this is a common practice in modern movies for some reason, whether it's a producer's choice or the cinematographer's choice, which I very much doubt is, but what they do is they'll keep the actor in focus and they have literally nothing surrounding them being in vision at all. I get you want the focus on the performance of what the character is saying, but the focus was so shallow where it looked like everything else was just censored for no apparent reason. Right after that, there's a scene of Affleck and Damon on the beach, which just isn't real. The beach that they're on isn't real because there's a wide shot at one stage where the two guys look so small in the terrain that doesn't look all too large. Some of the lighting never really matches. The green screen is super obvious and it's just ugly to look at across the board. Another thing that happens earlier in the movie is there is a small sequence, I suppose you could call it, where it is shown through a phone, which means that the aspect ratio is as if you would be watching it on a phone, which I think was an incredibly daunting thing to look at in a movie. However, it's probably to be expected from Netflix, and it was about that point when I just really kind of tuned out of everything. Now on to the music. The music in this movie was composed by Clinton Shorter, who's done music for films like District 9 and Two Guns. The music in this is really boring and uninteresting, and yet it suits the overall vibe of the movie in which it's in. It is the perfect type of wallpaper music which consists of a pulsating beat yet does nothing to get the adrenaline going despite this. The instrumentation has a very cold atmosphere to the whole thing, so I suppose there's some achievement there. If it wasn't obvious for the abundance of criticisms, this movie didn't really gel with me. Maybe if I revisit it when I'm 50, I'll get a bigger kick out of it since this has the vibes of the perfect dad movie. Netflix tends to churn out a good few of them now that I think about it. It's a film that has nothing much of substance going on, and then every 10 minutes there's just a bunch of noise by the constant gunfire spewing out of every orifice of the screen to the point where it becomes a sensory overload. The only true notable thing about this is that one of the production companies behind the movie is Artist Equity, which, if you don't know, is founded by Affleck and Damon. The two negotiated a deal with Netflix where if it performs well on the platform, the workers involved with the production would receive a bonus, which I think is a fun thing to provide the people that worked on the picture. Whether this is done well, I can't fully say for sure, as I'm not sure how many people will enjoy this fully, but there's definitely an audience for it somewhere. I'm giving The Rip 2.5 stars. The performances are okay for most of the runtime, but no one ever really stands out. There isn't anything too interesting going on here, which the same could be said for a lot of other aspects of the film, like I said, in terms of the cinematography and the music. It doesn't do too much to hold its own, especially with a runtime of 2 hours, and I honestly feel like a story like this just doesn't warrant that. But hey, the two guys are the same ages of the fan base that I think they're aiming for, so maybe once again, this just isn't for me. If you're somewhat interested in checking out this movie, it is currently running on Netflix, but honestly, you'll be so bored out of your mind, you'll be wondering why you bothered getting a subscription in the first place, so the safe bet is to just pirate the thing.